What's up, everyone? Randy Haskins back with Martial Insight and Advice video series. I have a very special guest. I've been looking forward to this for a while. He achieved some great things in the recent past, and we're going to discuss that, as well as a whole host of other things. Nate Ghareeb.
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks for coming. Thank you for the opportunity. I just want to say, before we even start, congratulations.
Thank you.
In case you're wondering, he just won a lightweight lightweight title. Phenomenal. It's great. For CES MMA promotion.
Been grinding all my life, sacrifice, hustle paid the price. Want a slice, got to roll the dice. That's why all my life I've been grinding all my life. Look, all my life, been grinding all my life, sacrifice, hustle paid the price. Want a slice, got to roll the dice. That's why all my life I've been grinding all my life. Look, I'm married to this game, that's who I made my wife. Said I die alone, I told that she probably right. One thing that's for sure.
Great job.
Thank you, man.
Great job. How'd it feel?
It felt really good. Yeah, it felt really good. It feels like all the years of training have, paid off. And I mean, they paid off in a lot of ways, but I think just the way that everything kind of unfolded in the last couple of months, and for it to come, the opportunity to come and for me to achieve this right now is exactly where I need to be. So I'm happy.
That's great.
So I'm Nathan Ghareeb. I started training martial arts about 8 years ago. I began in wrestling, so I started wrestling in high school and wrestled in college. And then about halfway through my college wrestling career, injuries kind of led me to take some time off, and so I jumped into mixed martial arts. So I started training Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, kickboxing, boxing, and then as time unfolded, I started training all the different arts and started training all the different places, and so it's been a long journey, but it's been a great journey, and so.
All that training was done around here in this area?
Actually, it's been all over the place. So I started at Team Link in Northampton. Okay. So I started there in 2014. And then I was making a transition from Springfield College, where I went for 2 years. I was wrestling there. I went to West Virginia University, and so there I picked up Muay Thai, kickboxing, and trained there for about 3 years. Came back, started training at John Manley had left Team Link, and so I was training with him. Started training a little bit here and there at the Fighting Arts Academy. Did another fight with John, and then I ended up committing 3 years with Fighting Arts Academy in Springfield. And in that time between those transitions, I trained in Thailand for 2 months. For 2 months, I lived out there and trained. I trained out in Colorado. Trained in Trinidad and Tobago, Bermuda. I went to Europe. Trained a couple of spots out in like various areas of Europe when I was out there. Where else did I go? A lot of my training was done here, and then I would go for places for a couple of months at a time. So I went to Canada. I trained at TriStar with Faraz Sahabi, and I trained there for a month. Then I started training after I fought for Bellator. I left and I started my own spot with my then who became my striking coach, my jiu-jitsu coach. We started our own spot for about a year. We had a spot that we were training at for preparing for fights. Now I train at Joe Lozon MMA in Boston. I train at Jeff Fadad's gym, Ascension, in Bristol, Connecticut. I still have some connection with the FA Connecticut guys, so I train there as well sometimes. Train with my good training partner, Eddie George. So I'm like all over the place, training all as many places as I can.
How would you categorize training in other locales across the other states as compared to this area? Would you say it's a higher level of training, or is it?
I think every place has something that I wouldn't say necessarily a niche, but every place has like a specific thing that they offer at like a higher level in certain ways. I think in Florida and and Las Vegas, Arizona, I think those states are more fill a lot of like the highest level guys in terms of you know, competition-wise, I think that, like, a lot of people flood to those areas. I would say they're like the hotbeds for like MMA. I mean, there's a lot of great training around here. I think the only issue is that compared to you know, like a Florida or an Arizona or Las Vegas, it's like there's no like hub where everybody comes together. As far as I know, like New England, it seems like we all kind of fight each other. Like we're, you know, a guy from the town over is fighting the guy, you know, close towns are fighting each other, and like I just think there's like a disconnect between, like, we shouldn't be fighting each other. I think we should be fighting, you know, preparing together so we can go to fight other states essentially, you know. Unfortunately, we're just kind of all spread all over the place from the New England area, you know, but yeah, I think there's still a lot of really great training, a lot of great teachers around. I just think that it's just a harder to get training partners together, people who are like really serious and have like a room full of those guys. I think that's the only thing that we're really missing. I don't think it's like a lack of coaching or anything like that. I think it's just there's a lack of like push in the room, if you will.
Yeah, I see that. Within my circles as well, we discussed that subject of how there's no real unity here. We fight each other as opposed to working together. Hence why William Mark Whitley Sensei created an organization called SMART, which stands for Springfield Martial Artists Rally for Togetherness, and we try to just do a bunch of different events and bring martial artists together and you know, work together. It's been a battle for 10, 15 years. I've been training for 46 years of my life. The whole 46 years has been in a segregated type environment because everybody fights each other.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, this is something that I've actually been thinking about a lot lately, and I think, you know, the idea got put in my head from my wrestling coach. So when I was going to graduate from high school, my wrestling coach had asked me and another friend of mine, what's next for you guys? What do you want to do? Like, I was already accepted to Springfield. I didn't really want to go to college. I didn't have there's nothing that I knew I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to do something different. I wanted to do something that would be fulfilling. I just didn't know what that was yet, and he was the one that brought that up to me and said, hey, why don't you do something like MMA? And I had never heard of MMA at that time. You know, like, all I had known at that time was wrestling, and from my personal experiences, like, all I knew about martial arts was like the karate background. I didn't know too much about like Muay Thai or boxing or anything like that, but I always thought, like, people talked about martial arts, I always thought like karate, you know what I mean? So I think for me, what really got me going with this was I had hit a pretty low point in my life during my time at Springfield when I was a sophomore, and I was struggling with like depression and like serious anxiety, where I was just like afraid of everything. And, you know, I grew up, I was a pretty scared kid. I was afraid of a lot of things, you know, just afraid of people, afraid of social interaction, just scared of everything. And there was a point where I just didn't want to be afraid anymore. You know, I didn't want to have to like walk through a room with like my head down and just be like anxiety, like someone's gonna say something to me, or someone like these people are looking at me. Like, I always had these weird like feelings that like people were trying to like someone would fuck me up if they wanted to. You know what I mean? Even with a wrestling background, there was always this fear, like if there was a problem, like I wanted to be able to solve it. I wanted to be able to protect myself, protect the people that I cared about that were around me, and I felt like I couldn't do that. So that really kind of sparked my movement towards it, because I took that 2 years after my coach had mentioned MMA, but it really came down to when I hit the lowest part of my life, where I was like, well, I need to do something, because I'm kind of sitting here and I'm just waiting for things to change, and it's not. You have to go out and actually like seek it. So I sought an old wrestling coach of mine who was I think he was 44, and he was fighting as an amateur. And so I had asked him, I said, hey, like, where are you training? Like, how are you doing this? Like, how are you getting these fights? And he gave me a couple options. Team Link was one of them. So I went to one of the classes, and first class I took, I fell in love with jiu-jitsu. I was like, oh, this is great. I'm gonna keep doing this, you know? So I really needed that competitiveness still, because without like my whole life I grew up doing sports, and with the time off from my shoulder injury my sophomore year, I taken about eight months off, and I needed that still, you know, like, so on top of the fear, the consistent fears and anxieties, I think having that drive to have competition in my life still really forced me to go and seek someone to teach me some different things, you know.
When it came to your jiu-jitsu experience, did you train and rank up, or did you just train, gather the information, and transfer it to your MMA?
So when I started in the gi, in jiu-jitsu, and I was really the goal was to become an MMA fighter, like, and what ended up happening through that was seeing how high level some of the guys were that were higher belts, and seeing how good they were. I did want to continue to, I wanted to rank up as I went, you know, so it wasn't always like the be all end all. Like, as I got older and I got more into it, like, the ranks didn't mean as much to me, but I still value having that rank and the showing that you put the time and the consistency into something and you didn't quit, because there's a lot of people that we always called it the blue belt curse. So when people get their blue belt, you almost never see them again. Yeah. And so when you know, the people that I see who have went past it, even if they got a stripe or 2 stripes or got their purple belt or brown belt, black belt, it's like you see the people in the room who can, there's very few and far between that who have those belts. But when you see those people, you see that person, like, they continued, they didn't quit. They weren't just satisfied with, like, I don't know, like, I don't want to say blue belts are mediocre, because they're, you know, they're learning, but that, oh, well, I did enough, and that's like almost like the base layer, like you just got past the very like trying time in your martial arts journey, and now you're gonna give up. Like, no, there's so much more to learn. Like, this is a lifelong process. So I value the ranks. I value people who put their time and the consistency in it. I think my biggest issue with the ranking for me is that because I've bounced around from so many gyms and I've had so many coaches, that it's like, you know, from what I've learned in terms of ranking, it's like a lot of these people are teaching their system. So if you're not in that system long enough, eventually it's like, I'm kind of like, who knows where I stand, you know what I mean? So it's I'm in a very strange place where I haven't had the consistency for a coach of like 10 years to get a rank in their system, because I'm always trying to improve my my knowledge and my training environment. So I think it's knowing that you know, me personally, I'm a perfectionist in a lot of ways. I fell in love with the art of it. You know, I fell in love with like the techniques and trying to refine those techniques, and trying to I aspire for a perfection in my techniques. And I think that knowing that there really is no level of perfection, it has to be consistently practiced, has kept me just like, I just want to keep getting better. There's just this, I have this overwhelming desire to be the best, and so I want to be the best at, and I don't want to just be the best in the world, but I want to actually be good at what I do. I don't want it to be like, oh, well, it looks good. Like, I want it to work. I want it to be effective. I understand that every time I win, a new challenger will arise, a better challenger will arise, bigger, stronger, faster, more technical. So I need to be prepared, and so I can't sit back and wait for things and be content. I can't be like, oh, well, what I've done is good and this will be okay. No, it has to consistently get better and better and better. So my motivation simply comes from wanting to be the best version of myself that I can be, so that when the time comes, I can handle the situation as it occurs. Oh, I mean, there's a lot of different things that have you know, that martial arts have given me. I mean, it's given me a different level of confidence for sure. Like I said, like I started, I began this because I was a coward and I was afraid. And you know, as I continued through the journey, I think the fears and the anxieties that I used to have, I felt more confident in myself, more confidence in who I am as a person. It helped me to think more like with critical thinking. You know, I got better at problem solving, not just in martial arts, but in life in general. You know, how to handle situations. Go ahead. Sorry. No. On and off the mat. You know.
I was just thinking as you were speaking. I was thinking. So, what was the contributing factor from the martial side of things that wrestling didn't offer you?
I think there's like, for mixed martial arts specifically, it's consequences. Because so what I've learned in the variety of martial arts is like, in jiu-jitsu, if you make a mistake, you could be choked out. You could have your arm broken. You could get your knee torn. If you make a mistake in boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai, karate, you could be lights out. You could have something broken. You know, it's all about consequences. Wrestling, there's no, the only consequences, worst case scenario, is the guy pins you. Guy gets on top of you, makes you tired, wears you down, beats you on the scoreboard, or puts your back to the mat and finishes you. And that's, you know, in terms of competition, that's consequences, right? But there's not the same level of consequence where you could be severely damaged or hurt. You know, you could break something. You could, and learning to control yourself and learning to have that control to also do that to somebody else, and learning like, well, I have the ability to really put it on somebody, kind of gives you that level of like respect for the techniques that you have and like control of yourself, knowing that if I was on the street and there's a problem, like, and you know, some people don't know that, you know, there's people all the time, loudmouths, people want to fight, but they don't realize the consequences that occur. So it's like, when I know that I can put your lights out, or I could really fuck you up, I need to make sure that I'm in control of myself so that that doesn't happen, that I can stop a situation before it even happens, using the confidence from the characteristics that I gained from martial arts to say, hey, like, look, like, let's like slow it down and let's talk about it first.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
very interesting. I like your explanation on that. It's, yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly, like earlier on, had I really maybe, I think my biggest thing would have been to like really find a team earlier on and stuck with it. I think maybe had I moved to one of those hotbeds like we talked about, maybe I'd be a little bit farther ahead in my career. But when I look at where I am right now, I know I'm exactly where I need to be right now, and I think that I've learned a lot of different lessons, like I said, through martial arts that have helped me through life to be a better person, to be a more intelligent person, to be a healthier person. I can't say for sure if it's a weird balance of thinking like I could have done more, or like, but when I look back on all the lessons that I've learned throughout the entire process, I don't know if I would really change anything right now. You know, like maybe if I was a little bit younger, but when I think about being younger, it's like, was I smart enough? Was I, you know, capable enough to handle it? What I could be dealt, you know, a couple years ago. Like if a bigger issue had come up, like I say, let's say I got to the UFC 2 or 3 years ago, would I have had the knowledge and the understanding that I do now? Would I have been prepared for that, or would it have been too early? So I think when I look at my career, like I'm a little bit older than a lot of these guys are. Like I'm 29, but like there are a lot of guys in the UFC who are 20 to 26, you know. And like when I think back to when I was 26, I was an idiot. You know what I mean? I wasn't as smart as I'm not, and I'm not the world's smartest man or anything like that. But I know that I've learned a lot in the process, so that I can, you know, I can take situations as they occur, and I'm more calculated about my approach. So it's a weird balance of like, yeah, I could have done some things differently, but I think that everything lined up the way it was supposed to for me to be where I am right now. So. I think the biggest thing for me is it is always dependent on what had occurred in a prior competition or fight, and seeing like, okay, well, what wasn't working, what needs to be worked on, because when you have that like fight or competition, you have data, and you say, okay, well, this worked really well, do this really well, and then the more you compete, the more you have data over a long period of time. Say, well, I do this really well, I succeed here, but where am I not succeeding? Especially when you lose, it's like, okay, if I fail at something or I make a mistake, okay, why did I make that mistake, and how can I make that so that I don't do it again? Like, what do I need to do? What repetition do I need to do? What series or system do I need to create so if this occurs again, I have an answer or a response to what my opponent or, you know, teammates do. So I definitely think that having like whether it could be sparring as well, doesn't that, or live roles. It doesn't have to necessarily be a competition where you're like in a live fight, but I think using the data from the live situations gives you the ability to take a step back and look at, okay, what am I missing? What needs to be worked on? For me, it's like always trying to make sure that like you're trying to, the way I see it is you're trying to build a system. You know, you try to build a system so that like when you are in a panic state, like when your fight or flight is on, you can respond appropriately to the attacker or opponent, whatever it is. And so that you are also just trying to build on your techniques, build on your own approach as well. I think the biggest thing, and one of my other issues that I see around a lot, is that a lot of people think there's like, this is the way, the Mandalorian, this is the way we do things. And it's like, yes, but like what other ways can it be done? Like not everybody's system or approach is going to work well for everyone. Like there's so many different types of people who've had different types of experiences, different body types, males, females, like everybody's going to have a different way. So I think it's important to also like learn from your coaches and learn from your teammates, but you also need to look inside and see what works well for you, because like what works well for me might not work well for you, and vice versa, but that doesn't mean I can't learn from you. I can't learn pieces of your game that will help me to be a better version of myself. I might not copy and paste your entire approach, but I might learn like 4 or 5 things that in a couple years or a year could be make a huge difference in when it comes time to step in there and fight somebody that maybe they've never seen that before. So I think it's like a game of like sharing and learning and really trying to keep an open mind. Like if something doesn't feel right, trust your instincts. If someone's telling you something, you're like, still try it out. But if it continues not to work for you, then consider a different approach. Maybe that one's not the right one for you. Doesn't mean it's wrong, because anything can work at any time. And then there's plenty of data to prove that anything can work at any time. But you want to find things that are going to work well based on the attributes and the knowledge and the experiences that you've had. It's a hard one. I feel like I think people, especially today with like YouTube and all the BJJ Fanatics videos and striking videos you can get, I think people are happy to buy all those things, but then don't put them into play as much as they should. Because, at the end of the day, I think it's like they've said that since I was a kid, practice makes perfect. And I think that people think, oh, I can do this a couple of times. Like, oh, I saw this on a YouTube video and I can practice it once or twice and then I'll be good at it. It's like, no, like that's gonna take you I think for us, obviously, at least 6 months to develop new skills. So that means you need to be working at it. You need to be practicing. You need to be in there at least 2 hours a day. If you're training, if you've got 7 days in a week, in my opinion, you should be training at least, if you're serious about this, you should be training probably 4 to 6 days a week. If you're doing it 4, then you need to have a couple 2-a-days in there. And if you're doing it, 6 days a week, I think you should still have a couple days that are, 2-a-days, but it shouldn't be like, it's like the game of like volume or intensity. It depends on like what you're trying to accomplish, I think. But I think people do value like having the knowledge, but they don't necessarily like they don't put it into play like they should. It's cool. Yeah, you can know all this stuff, but if you don't know if you can't apply it, then what's the point of having all this knowledge? I think it's important to know like what you're trying to accomplish with it. What do you need like as a tool for a job? Like self-defense is going to be a little bit more a little different than if you're competing, and if you're just doing it for fun, like you're just doing it for. So there are plenty of guys that I know that are like hobbyists that just like to do it for fun and they just want to get better and play it as like a game essentially, right? I think it's important to know like you said, the context of why you're doing it, because like what I do in MMA, I probably wouldn't want to do in a self-defense sequence, right? Because I think, especially when you start pulling out guns and knives and different tools, like if I try to tie clinch some guy and pulls out a knife and starts stabbing me, probably not a great approach. If there's a bunch of people, always thought about it this way. I don't know, an old teacher taught me was if there's a bunch of people, you're at a bar, a guy pushes you, you get into a fight, he's with his buddies, you double leg him, take him down. Now you're on the ground, and now you got, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5 people pounding on your head. You need to know, like, when and where to apply certain things, you know, like it's not gonna, you know, because like obviously in a fight, I can't kick the guy in the groin and, you know, eye gouge him, but if I'm in the street, you know, you can bet I'm gonna be eye gouging you, I'm gonna be kicking you in the groin and biting you. You know, you have to know when to switch certain, flip certain switches, and I think context is really important, because you definitely don't want someone, you know, at a bar gets knocked over and they're pulling guard and they're trying to submit a guy, and then he's got his buddies over here stomping on your head with, like, you know, some shit kickers on, you know what I mean? Like, no, it's important, yeah. It's definitely more focused. You know, when I began, it was a lot about the technique. It was about this, like, maybe like a specific technique thrown, like kicks, punches, elbows, knees. But then it became, as I grew older, it became more about how do you set these things up? How do you create a certain, like, how do you control the distance? Like, it became more scientific as I got older and I got more into it. It was less about throwing it, because now less about throwing the technique or just doing a technique, but it's like, how can I do this technique and then have systems that flow off of those techniques? Like, how do those techniques set up other techniques, and building off of that? I would say for sure, I mean, like, the focus is there's a higher level of focus than there was before, and having to constantly, you know, humble yourself to remind yourself that you aren't the best at this yet. You have to continue to progress, and so you have to continue to learn, continue to ask questions, continue to find people who can answer those questions. If your teacher doesn't know or your teammates don't know, then you have to seek out that information, whether it be, like we said, like a YouTube video, or you fly out to wherever to find the knowledge from that particular person who might have that answer to fill that gap that you have. I would say, you know, I would definitely say one would be Khabib Nurmagomedov for sure. I'm a big fan of Rico Verhoeven in Glory Kickboxing, Donald Cerrone, Conor McGregor. I think, you know, they're all different styles, different approaches, but they all have a specific, you know, uniqueness to them that have inspired me in their variety of ways with what they do well and how they carry themselves, you know. Well, first, I think consistency. The people that show up every day and are consistently working towards that level, and realizing that it's not a straight line. You know, it's not going to be like, oh, I just walk in here and I'm just really good at this, and, you know, like, you're going to take beatings, you're going to take losses, you're going to deal with a lot of hardship. You know, you're going to deal with failure and struggle. And I think the people who have learned to consistently like learn from those mistakes and those problems and not give up are the ones that have continued to progress throughout their career. You know, I think having a great group of people around you is important. They don't all have to be the highest level, but I think the environment that is set for you is going to make a huge difference on the journey that you progress through. You know, if you're surrounded by people that are like showing up late and they're half-assing it, and they want to go out and drink with their buddies on the weekend, and, you know, I think that makes it hard to stay focused on like what you need to do. I think when you're surrounded by people who are, especially because fighting is so stressful, you know, having people around you that, like, one thing I learned when I started training with my coach, Dan McIntyre and Alex, was that the environment that they set for me made a huge difference. Like, it was a lot of fun, loving, joking around, but we also worked hard and we did consistent work trying to rep out something. And I think when it comes time to fighting, what I learned was, you know, if somebody makes you stressed out, or somebody doesn't give you set a tone for a good environment, like, they need to go. You know, if you're surrounded by people that, like, are passionate about what they do and work hard at what they do and are trying to get better and trying to learn, and they're not satisfied with where they are, they want more for themselves, I think that helps to helps you progress a lot faster than if you're like constantly like dreading to go to training or dreading to be surrounded by people, or you feel like, oh, like already like you will come home from training like these people are just, they're not helping me, they're hindering me. It's really important to have a good environment and a strong connection with the people that you're trying to that are trying to help you raise the bar, because at the end of the day you can't do this alone. You need a team, you need training partners, you need a coach. So I think for sure, I think environment is probably like one of the most key things for that. I would say first and foremost is you got to get started. You know, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. So, you know, I think first and foremost you need to find a place and you know, see if it's a good fit for you, because like we talked about the environment, like you could have the world's best coach, but if you don't mesh well with that person, you know, you'll learn from them, but it's like, my thing is at what rate are you going to learn from them? But the biggest thing that I could always tell someone is just get started. I think starting with a single art is great first, because then you can always build off of it. I think and seeing how well you like it, you know, I think if you get a taste for it, you're gonna love it. And then if you spend enough time with that person, let's say you do 1 or 2 years, especially if you're young, and you start to feel like, okay, it's starting to get mundane, or it's starting to get dry, or like you've done the same thing over. Like if I show up every day and my coach like arm bars, it's like, okay, well after, you know, 2 years of just arm bars, okay, now it's time to learn something else. So if there's only a few things that you're doing, it's probably time to move on. And I think it's a process, and I think it's important that people take the time to go and to learn and continue to grow from other people, you know, because there's a lot out there, but you don't want to get caught up in the cookie cutter mentality where it's like, okay, this is who you are now, because now I think you miss out on what martial arts is about. From my point of view is like, you want to, you know, martial arts is, there's all these different philosophies and all these different approaches and all these different training methods, but it's like you got to find the one that works well for you, so that at some point you'll have a system or a style that is your own, you know. But it's also an accumulation of the knowledge you have. So if your coach is like, here's this is what you are now, this is what you are now, this is what you are now, it's like, okay, well now after, let's say you said 44 years, you said 46. Like imagine if you just for 46 years you were just doing the same thing with the same people. Like you have a variety of different senseis and masters that have taught you. So you are, and you have your own knowledge that I'm sure you cultivated on your own with like studying and learning, right?
And my outlook is a little is extremely different. The human body, since the beginning of man, we're born with 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head. So the art never has to change. You understand? Because it deals with the frailties of the human body. Human body's anatomically weak. Most people's karate is punching and kicking. That's not what karate is designed to be. So I started realizing all this stuff, researching. So when you see most people do their karate, most people's assessment or presentation of karate is wrong. It's just a sporting application, or a sporting, punching and kicking is a sporting thing. But true karate is joint manipulation, muscle and tendon disruption, pressure point application, vital area attacks. It's loading, tripping, reaping, and sweeping. It's punching, thrusting, striking, and kicking. It's Tegumi, which is Okinawan wrestling / grappling. It's Kabuto, which is ancient arts. It's you name it, it has it in it. You know what I'm saying? So my outlook on it is totally different than most people in this. So when we seen the early UFCs, and you see the Goju guy with the white gi on, and he had the mustache, and he was in there doing his limited interpretation of what karate was. That's why it came out like that, and everybody laughed at karate. Yeah, I can go all day. But, so, you fought in different organizations, and how'd you end up in CES?
Well, it's a big New England promotion. I think it's like the biggest one on the Northeast. So, I had fought for them in my second pro fight, and then obviously COVID happened. I had shoulder surgery, then COVID happened, so I had about 1.5 years off.
Which is good sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't really sure what was going to happen. I was struggling. A lot of the gyms were closed. And then Bellator was an opportunity that came up. I fought for them, and then that's right after Bellator. I basically changed my my team, and we formed our own little squad. And then CES had a card coming up in West Springfield, and up until that point, no one really knew, other than the people that I knew, really knew that I was like doing this as an amateur. People had like heard my game, but that I guess really impressed the promoters. They really liked what I was doing in that fight, and then I ended up fighting in I think it was August, and then I fought in September. Took a month off, and then not like a month off from training, just from a fight. And then I fought in November. So I fought, I fought 3 times in 4 months, and it was all for CES. So they were like really happy to have me on, and then I had a couple injuries that I was dealing with in the new year for this year, and then I fought in June. And then I fought in September, and then I just fought this weekend. So again, I just fought another. It's just every time they had a card, I was like, hey, I'll fight.
So they don't. These organizations around here, like they don't. Have you signed long-term contracts? It's just like a one-off.
Yeah, so you can. And after that, like I said, the fight in August last year, they had wanted me to sign a contract, but I just want to keep my doors open. If Bellator had called again, I would probably fight for them again. And there are other promotions out there, but CES has been great to me. They've gotten me opponents. They've given me 2 opportunities to fight for belts. So it and I love working for the Birchfields. They're fighting under their their brand. So it's just been the thing that makes the most sense at this time. They're on UFC Fight Pass, and Mr. Birchfield is good friends with Dana White, so having the connection, I believe, will definitely get me where I'm trying to go. So
that's good.
Yeah,
that's good. How many organizations have you fought for around here, like in this?
Just 2.
Just 2.
Just CES and Ammo. When Ammo was my pro debut, and then after that, I was like, I'd rather just fight for CES and obviously Bellator or the UFC if it comes up, So that's kind of how.
How many amateur fights did you have before you went pro?
10. 10. 1 Muay Thai fight, yeah.
Oh. Nice. What's the future hold? What do you?
The goal is to be in the UFC. It's been my goal since I started. I figured if I'm going to do this, I want to do it. I want to be the best at it. I'm not trying to just be like, oh, I was a pro fighter. I want to be like, I want to compete at the highest level. And so I'm hoping to, maybe who knows? They have a short notice. They need a short notice replacement. I'll hop right on there and try to fight in the UFC. That's my goal. I want to fight at the highest level. So that's where I'm headed. But then, now compared to when I started, promotions are popping up all over the place that are paying well. So some getting paid well would be really nice at this point as well. So Bellator, PFL, ONE FC out in Singapore.
I hear they're great.
Yeah,
that organization is great.
I'd love to fight for ONE at some point. I'd like to do the 4-ounce Muay Thai.
Yeah.
Because then it's like I don't have to worry about grappling anymore. I can just strike. But for now, the UFC will be my main focus, and has been my main focus for the last 8 years, and I'm gonna just keep going until I get there. You can follow me on Instagram at NastyNateG MMA. I've got a Facebook, Nathan Ghareeb. You can watch my fights on UFC Fight Pass. Just type in CES and then click one of the links. I'm sure I'm one of the fights. I've had like 7 fights for them for the last 2 years. So, feel free to reach out to me at email if you have any questions at nathanghareeb@gmail.com, and about it.
When it comes to fighting, you do quick turnarounds. I noticed. Do quick turnarounds. That's pretty impressive.
Thank you.
That speaks on your hunger and your will. Speaks volumes.
Thank you.
Highly impressed. Thank you for allowing me to interview you.
Absolutely.
And allowing my audience insight into your life. And we look forward to many more things.
Thank you.
Thank you.